What's up, guys? My name is Andy, and this is my podcast. So, the last podcast that I did, it was a week ago now, probably about a week ago, a little over a week ago. I said I was going to sit down and do a podcast, basically saying this is what's been going on. I haven't done a podcast in probably about a year. New content of podcasts. Been busy doing a lot of other things, but no new podcast. So I've received several messages, not like an overwhelming amount of messages or anything, but quite a few from people saying, "Hey, what's going on?" So I thought, well, I'll do a podcast saying, "This is what's going on," just kind of to try to keep people in the loop and all that stuff, all the stuff. And then I sat down in front of the mic and I started talking about Epstein, and it just ended up doing a whole episode on Epstein, just because that was fresh. I think I sat down and I started recording last Tuesday, and all of the DOJ released their report or lack thereof on Sunday night. And that was kind of a big thing. And since then, it's kind of blown up into a bigger thing, which actually, to me, the fact that people are really upset is actually a very encouraging thing to me. And I saw I can't remember the exact number, but for Republican voters under 30, it's a massive issue for them, which actually is very, very encouraging to me. That's a very encouraging sign that voters under 30, this is a very big deal for them. I find that very encouraging. So in that episode, I said there are two major things for me. These were things that I thought others hadn't highlighted yet. And that was the victims, the thousands of American girls that have been kidnapped and systematically raped, that essentially are CIA knew about and turned a blind eye to. If they weren't actively supporting it, they certainly turned a blind eye to it, knowing all about it. And I think that's just absolutely horrifying and disgusting and wrong that happened, and is probably still happening, to be entirely frank. If you start picking at that scab, you have no idea how much blood is coming out, type thing. So that's horrifying. There's that, and then the issue of what I call the elites and the peasants, and how they are just very dismissive of the populace who are very upset about this. And I think since then, I got to be careful. I don't want to do another whole episode on that, but since then, Trump has come out and he's spoken about it a few times, and every time he does, you're like, oh my goodness, could this get worse? Oh my goodness, could you be more dense? Could you say something more retarded than what you just said? His first response when he was in the cabinet meeting, I thought was horrible, because I thought it was very, very dismissive of people that care about this deeply, and it was very dismissive of the victims. Those are American girls that have been kidnapped and raped that he just dismissed, and I think that's horrifying. And this is a nerve that fires off in so many directions, and everybody seems to be aware of that. Maybe not the specifics, but everybody knows this is a big deal, right? There's enough out there, and there has been enough out there that this is a huge deal. Like, the evidence that we do have is pretty damning, type thing. And he is very dismissive of it. The last I heard, he blamed it on Obama and Biden. It was conspiracy. They came up with the list. It was a deep state. They created the list, which doesn't exist. So they created this hypothetical list that doesn't exist. And for people that think this is a very big deal, he's now referring to those people as so-called Trump supporters. And I think this is so profoundly stupid on his part. I thought he completely misjudged the situation when he opened his mouth. He didn't have to interrupt that reporter, and he did. He felt the need to shut him up in that cabinet meeting and defend Bondi, and then has doubled and quadrupled down ever since then, which I think is really bad. It's just, for a great multitude of reasons, but it's just optically terrible. Sorry, I'm trying not to say too much regarding that, but I think this is going to be an issue. I really do, and I hope that it is, because it's a serious issue that I think he's been dismissive of, and I think he's not reading the room on this. And in part, there could be a great multitude of reasons for that, and you don't want to speculate too much, but this is a man whose sexual ethic has been called into question a whole lot, rightfully so. And if he wanted to dispel any rumors, he's certainly not going about this the right way. It's certainly not helping himself. And the Trump administration went in, they hit the ground running. People were very excited, rightfully so. And I was thankful for a lot of the people that he appointed, and a lot of people that he appointed to those positions now, when you see them in interviews regarding any of the Epstein stuff, they look like dogs pooping. Like, if you've ever seen a dog pooping and you stare at it, they just look ashamed. That's how all of these people look. Like, over the last 4 years, even more than that, because Epstein killed himself in 19, I believe, they've been talking about this. And now they get in and it's like, oh yeah, nothing to see here. And they haven't even said, hey, look, I was wrong, and this is why. None of that. So all of these people look horrible. And trust is one of those things that's very hard to gain. It's very easy to destroy, and it's even harder to gain back. And I think it's really bad that they have pretty much pissed away all of the trust that they gained. At least in my mind, I feel like they've crapped all over it. Like, I don't believe anything they say. The one thing they had going for them going into this was that they were going to be honest, they were going to be transparent, they were going to actually flush the deep state toilet. And I feel like up to this point, they have not only done that, they've been very deceptive regarding this issue. And when that happens, I mean, a little leaven leavens the whole lump. So if they are blatantly bold-faced lying to your face, it calls everything else that they're doing into question. I don't trust them. I don't trust any of them now. The trust I had was, very, very small, because I believe in the very first principle of American governance is don't ever trust the government. So I had little trust going into it, even though I was glad that we voted for Trump. I'm glad that Trump got in, as opposed to a retarded drunk hyena. That would have been really, really bad, and we'd probably be in the middle of a civil war right now, probably, or gearing up for one type thing. So I was happy when Trump won, and he had a lot of momentum behind him, and this just halted that. And it's for the stupidest reasons too, which makes it even worse. But I think this is going to affect them in 2026. I really do. I think it's a big issue, and people are not going to forget it. I certainly will not, and I think it will affect them in 2028. Vance had some things to say about releasing the Epstein list, and he, at least to his credit, he's been very quiet on this, and that's probably the smartest play. But I don't care about the smartest play. I don't care about the politics of it, and I think people have gotten to the point to where they don't either, right? We understand there's a lot of terrible stuff that goes on. We understand that at every level of leadership, there's only so much you can share, and there's just stuff that you can't. Just say that. I can't say these things, and I can't say these things for this reason, but this is what I can tell you. That builds credibility, that builds trust, and it appears to be authentic, and there's a complete lack of that. And I feel like people, myself included, so maybe I'm just generalizing from the part to the whole here on this one, but I feel like people feel like they've been duped, or they're trying to be duped, and it's just a horrendous attempt at it. So I'm just very disappointed that the trust is gone, and that this is something that's going to come back to hurt them. But even more than that, I'm still utterly repulsed at the way that we would treat, again, American daughters, right? These are girls that have been kidnapped and they've been raped, and there's just a very little outcry for every single one of those girls to get justice and for all of those people's heads to be on a pike, which they should be. And here's the thing: what you tolerate, you are going to get more of. So, what have we just tolerated as a nation? Well, a massive sex trafficking ring, probably funded in part by our own government, to some degree. Who knows? I don't think that's an unfair hypothesis, and I don't think I'm alone in that. So, if nothing happens regarding that, and a large percentage of people believe that about our own country, what do we think we are going to see more of? And what does that mean for your daughters and granddaughters and the like? That's something that should concern you very, very deeply, because the ramifications of that are not something that's felt all at once, right? It's not like, oh, if then therefore, because this happened. It's a generally a slow and steady rot all the way through. And that to me is very, very concerning. When you start jiggering with the dials of justice, that is not pleasing to the Lord, and that can't stand. When you have a nation that's built on deception and depravity and debt, it's not going to end well. It's just not going to end well. So the idea that we're destroying ourselves from within is concerning and heartbreaking, and it's just a bad deal all around. And I think people looking at this feel deflated and demoralized. Like this is a horrible, horrible thing. And every time the president opens his mouth, he just makes it worse. And I've been a supporter. So, but you have to cut straight, right? And this is a bad deal. This is a really bad deal. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. It's still ongoing, and I don't know that anything will ever be determined from it. And I think because of that, it's not good. And they kind of put themselves in a corner regarding it, because now even if they appoint a special counsel, even if they're like, oh, hey, guess what, guys, there was all this stuff, we were just kidding all along. Oops. I still look at the things that were said in interviews and how this has been handled by Trump, and I think, you idiots. Like, I still don't trust them. It looks like because people were so upset about this, they had to like practically do something about it, but principally they didn't really want to. They wanted to move on. At least that's the way that it looks. And that to me is shameful. I mean, it really, really is shameful, and a gross abuse of the position and power, and a gross abuse of trust. So even if things were to come out and like, oh, well, we have a special counsel, and well, these people, we found these bad guys now. It just looks like it looks reactionary, and it looks like their hand was forced, but they didn't really want to do it, which, again, given the subject matter, is a ticking time bomb, and it should be, and people are upset, and they should be, and all of it could have been avoided. This is all self-inflicted. So, yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say about that. I don't know if I said that already, but that was the last word, and the word after that, I guess. So, podcasting. Why haven't I done a podcast in a while? That's why I wanted to do this originally, right? Or as my youngest son would say, you haven't done one in a thick minute, which I think is funny, and just kind of an expression in our home now that we use, because he's a funny kid. He's awesome. But I haven't done a podcast in a bit. So my family has been through just a whole lot of change. There's been a whole lot going on, and I'm not going to get into all of it. But a couple of years ago, we had some just horrible things happen, traumatic things, life-changing things, just terrible, terrible, devastating things happen to my family and within my family, and it was really, really hard. And my family needed my time, and there was just a lot going on. So I decided to step down from ministry, and that's a whole nother story. But step down from ministry and get away with my family and just figure some things out. We needed to be together and go to the wilderness. So we did. We sold everything, just finished renovating our dream home. It was fantastic and idyllic and all of those things, but we felt like God was saying, unplug and go. So you don't argue with the Almighty. If he says go, you go. Over the years, I've had so many conversations with young guys that have come to me and they're like, oh, God's calling me to this, that, or the other. And it's like, well, okay, what are you doing now? Well, not this, that, or the other. So it's like either you're not called or you're being disobedient, right? So if you think God's telling you to go, you go, right? You shouldn't stop talking to me and go get her done type thing. So, so we sold it all and decided to move to a state where we could stretch our dollar and just have a lot of time together. And so we did. We moved across country to a place we had never been or never seen, and we just saw some pictures of the house online and thought it was a dump with potential, and it turns out it was a much bigger dump than what we had anticipated. At least we thought, right? Our expectations were we had certain expectations, and those were systematically and succinctly and steadily destroyed over time after we got in. And and it was a bit of a culture shock. And it was, we knew nobody and nothing. The whole idea was that we would have this time together. We'd renovate the house together, and then I would continue to podcast because my son and I did it together, and I enjoyed that. And we set up the Godly Troublemaker podcast to be a polemic, right? To shine the light of Christ in the eyes of the idols of our day. So it was meant to be punchy and it's fun, and cultural apologetics and worldview. That's my wheelhouse. So it's fun for me to challenge certain things that are going on, and obviously there's no shortage of things to critique. And so we did that together, and we thought, okay, we'll continue to do that, and then we'll figure some stuff out. And in the midst of that, the house was far worse than what we anticipated. It took, over 6 months to try to get a studio set up to where we could actually record. And then we finally started recording some new episodes, and then we were just a lot going on in our lives. And then my son, after a while, he's like, I would really like to just kind of go do some other things. So it's like, okay, well, of course. But he handled all the audio and video and I guess old dog new tricks type thing. I'm like, okay, I don't know how to do any of this stuff. It all looks very, very foreign to me to do all of that stuff. And right around that same time, my wife and my son, to their credit, were pushing me to start writing. I've wanted to write a book for years, and I started a couple years ago, and I just didn't. I would, you get busy with ministry, and I would get discouraged, and it's like, okay, well, there really aren't any publishers that I can think of that would pick up my stuff, and if they did, it wouldn't be my stuff by the time it was done. I just have a certain way of communicating that would, a lot of those rough edges would be not there anymore. And so I would just kind of, I'd start and I'd get discouraged, and I'd start and I'd get discouraged. But I love to write. I communicate through writing. I pray pretty much every day, Lord, make me a better communicator of your gospel. And I started that when we started the church that I used to pastor years ago. Lord, make me a better communicator of the gospel. In speaking and in writing, I want to communicate the gospel better, more succinctly, more clearly, wherever I'm at, whatever anybody gives me, whatever text I'm in, get me to that. Show me how to get to that. Because that's what matters most, right? I want to get to Christ. I want people to see him. Show me how to do that. So anyway, they said, you should really start writing, and then we looked into, okay, but I don't want to shop around. I don't want to send out manuscripts to publishers and those types of things. Not that there isn't merit in doing that, but I just, I don't know. I didn't want to go through the whole process for whatever reason. I was like, I don't know. And then we looked into self-publishing, and it was like, okay, this is something that we could really do. And when that became an option, then it was kind of like this weight had lifted, because we could control all of our intellectual property. We could control the whole process, right? The graphic design, the editing, the writing, what we put out, when we put it out, we could control all of that. And I absolutely love the creative process. So as things started to kind of close, not like shut down, sounds very ominous and final with the podcast, but things were going to change with it regardless, because I wasn't going to be doing all of the video editing and stuff yet. I'm still figuring some of that stuff out. So that was going to change no matter what, which is fine, right? You learn new stuff and you adapt, and God is good. And then I started writing, and absolutely loved it. I love to write. I feel God's pleasure when I write. I don't know if people feel God's pleasure when they read what I've written, but I certainly enjoy writing. So we kind of paused everything on the podcast, and I really started just focusing on writing. And I was just thankful to have the opportunity to be able to do that. And the first book that we put out was Renovating the Soul, which was kind of about our whole experience, not in depth, but about our whole experience of moving. That kind of set the context for the background for the book. It's basically a Christian worldview book through the lens of home renovation. So all of these experiences that we've had in home renovation, at each one of them, I'm going, where do we see Christ in this? How is Christ exalted in this? What is Christ teaching us in this? And I meant it to be a very encouraging book. And honestly, as I was writing it, I was preaching to myself just as much as I was to anybody else. And the feedback that we've gotten from it, from people that have purchased it and worked through it, has been very, very encouraging. So I'm thankful for that it could encourage the people that have read it. And so I put that one out, and after doing that, it was like, oh my, this is wonderful. I love the whole process of sitting down and feeling like this is something that I really have to write. I think there's something here. I think people will really benefit from this. I think it will be encouraging, and just working on all of it, the whole structure of it, the how you get from A to B in writing and trying to communicate something, and anticipating how people are going to wrestle through it and who's going to wrestle through it, and then just the graphic design, putting it together as a package. The font. I mean, over the years, I've read so many books that when you come across one that you're like, oh, this just feels good, right? You're reading it, and the font size is good, the chapter size is good, and all of those things. It's just fun. So I like controlling all of the intellectual property. I love the process, and I mean, we're probably never going to make as much money as we would if we went with a publisher and all that, because they have the whole marketing wing behind them. And honestly, they run all the algorithms. They know what's going to sell. But I don't want to be put through a machine. I don't want to be put through a mill. And honestly, I'm not the type of guy that you can do that with and maintain any degree of authenticity or genuineness at all. So love it or hate it, it is what it is. This is the way I communicate, rough edges and all. And I'm thankful for that. It is what it is. And the vast majority of my demographic through the Troublemaker, and then now through the publishing the books that we've published, the vast majority are men. It's like over 90% men from just what we can look at and analyze. Well over 90%. So that's very encouraging to me also, because I think there's just men are hungry, and there's a lot of opportunity there. And I guess that's a whole nother podcast. But I've written 2 books on the patriarchy, and pretty much everything I write for a male audience. I've had some women's groups use my commentary on Jonah and have benefited from it, but they're always kind of surprised at first. It's kind of like a shot of 100 proof. You're either gonna it's gonna wake you up. We'll just say that. But usually guys read what I've written and they're like, oh yeah, I totally get it. And women read what I've written and they're like, yeah, this is, you're gonna have to explain it to me because this is different. So I'm thankful for that as well. So when we decided to self-publish, we needed a name. Okay, we're gonna self-publish, but who are we? What's our, as a publisher? What are we? So we started Soul Reno Media. That's kind of where we were at when we wrote, where I was at, and when I say we, I'm talking about my wife and I, and my son's been involved in some of the graphic design in our earlier books, but then he's taught me how to do some of the later ones. So we're transitioning into me doing some of that stuff as well. So it's mostly my wife and I doing this right now. And, by God's grace, we'll be able to collaborate with some other people in the future. And I've met a handful of guys that are self-published online as well since then. And they're all pretty awesome dudes that are passionate about getting their stuff out, kind of in the same place that I am. They don't really want to go through the mill. They want to control all of their own IP and feel like God's been pressing upon them to share certain things, and they're able to do that through self-publishing. So I think that's very exciting. I think you're going to see a lot more guys doing that, and those are the stuff that I kind of want to read, because it's the stuff it's not as polished, but you can find nuggets of gold there when you do. So it's kind of fun. But so we thought, okay, well, we'll start Soul Reno Media, and with Soul Reno Media, like with the Troublemakers, pretty much a polemic ministry. It's meant to be a punch in the face, and a punch in the face with a smile on your face, right? There's some snark there, right? And that's intentional, and that's probably part of that. Well, it most certainly is part of my personality, that I have a lot of fun with the Godly Troublemaker podcast, and that part of the polemical writing that I've done. But with Soul Reno, we wanted it to be much, much bigger. Like, okay, the Troublemakers, we're tearing stuff down, but we want to build stuff up too, right? That's the whole go. That's the whole goal. You chew the meat and spit out the bones. So we have 3 commentaries out now. We have one on Jonah, one on Habakkuk, and one on Ecclesiastes. And of course, I'm biased, but I think they're great. I think they're good. They're reformed. They're raw. They're relevant. They're readable, and they're relatable. And I think there's enough deep theological wrestling in them to where somebody who's a little more astute with certain things might go, okay, this is going to challenge me in a good way. For a readable commentary, this is actually, it was worth it. And then for people who may not read commentaries, they can pick these up and go, well, I really enjoyed this. I can actually read commentaries, and they're meatier than what most people are going to use for a small group. There's more weight there. I hate triteness. Absolutely hate it. Like, over the years, I've grown to hate it more. Just the superficial, fake, syrupy piety, the big evangelical, just bleh, I hate the triteness. So I try to wrestle through some deep stuff and be willing to ask the tough questions. And I might not have all the answers, but I'm going to be willing to ask them, and I want people to as well, as they wrestle through this stuff, because I believe that even if you don't have all of the answers, Christ does. And I believe that Christ is there with you in the whirlwind. He's there with you in the tears. He's there with you in the doubt and the fears and the I don't know. He's there with you through all of it. And just because you don't know and you don't have an answer, it doesn't mean Jesus doesn't. So we shouldn't be afraid to say, Lord, take me deeper. So Anyway, we've written 3 commentaries so far, and we have study guides available for all of those to help you through your small groups. And then we just started publishing journals. These are, I started writing those because I wanted a tool that we could use for our family, for like family devotions after dinner, something short and sweet. And individuals can use them too, but there's basically we take a particular topic. There's an introductory chapter kind of giving an overview, and then there's scripture, there's reflection questions, and then a quote. I find the quotes really helpful because over so many years, 12, 13 years in ministry, and then writing a lot, now it's nice to have a lot of really good quotes at hand. So I probably would have bought these, honestly, when I was in ministry, just to have all the quotes. I mean, I would still use it as a tool, but it's nice to have all the quotes available on a particular topic. So we wrote the gratitude journal. I'm going to actually use that with my family. We're going to have dinner here in a little bit, and we do it every night after dinner. We work through the questions together. So feedback on that has been great. So we just put out yesterday the holiness journal. It's really the first of its kind, topically dealing with holiness, right? What's the most important thing that you want for your family? Well, you want them to grow in holiness. It's the same thing that you should want for your own life. I want to grow in holiness. I want to go closer to Christ. I want to be more like Jesus. I don't necessarily want to be more like this dude or this tribe or that tribe, but I want to be more like Christ. And so we hope the journals help to kind of cultivate spiritual growth in your life, and they can be used. I think they're great for family devotionals because over the years I've just had a hard time finding stuff. It either ends up being trite, which I hate, but I also hate the over the top, the stuff that sounds like it was written 500 years ago type thing, and it's overly pious, and yeah, I'll just leave that alone. But that stuff is really hard to work through as a family unless you're churning your own butter and don't own a TV and still speak in Old English type stuff. And I'll just leave that there. But you probably had a picture of what that looked like because you know those people and they're insufferable. Yeah. So we have the journals. We have 3 more journals that I'm working on right now that are mostly done. We're tweaking, and then we'll have one for Christmas. We'll put out before Advent, which will be cool. That one should be a good seller for us, and that will be a lot of fun. And then I have another commentary called "God's Gonna Cut You Down." Obviously, that's a play on a Johnny Cash song, which is totally awesome. And the commentary is on Nahum, so that one's going to be a banger because it's just 3 chapters of judgment. We should have that out end of August, beginning of September, and it's going to be awesome. And we'll have a study guide with that one as well. And then I wrote, "Gentlemen, this is the gospel," obviously because God's people should never tire of hearing the gospel, and we should always want to go, okay, how can I communicate it better? And oftentimes we just need to step back and say, guys, we need to keep the main thing, always the main thing. And that's what that book does. It's punchy, it's fun, it's short, it's written obviously by a guy, for guys, and uses Lombardi as a backdrop for that. Gentlemen, this is the gospel, obviously a play on Gentlemen, this is football. And then Renovating the Soul is pretty much for everybody. It's very encouraging. Anybody can pick it up. I know ladies that have read it that have benefited from it and had fun with it, but all of the men that I know, mostly men, have read it and said this is just a really encouraging book. So I'm thankful for that. And then we have Make Patriarchy Great Again, and I Don't Really Care, Margaret, both on the patriarchy. I Don't Really Care, Margaret deals more with feminism and a little more with politics and all of that, but those are obviously specifically more directed towards men. Definitely a lot punchier and snarkier, and I think they're fun. Feedback on those we've gotten have been great too. So Nahum's coming, and which will be great. We have 3 more journals on the docket, and then I have so many books on patriarchy and masculinity that I would like to write, because I talk to a lot of guys. That's primarily who I'm reaching with my content. So there's demand there, and I have a few on the docket that I don't want to share because I don't want anybody to rip off my ideas. But they'll be a lot of fun, and I'm excited about those too. So long story short, when we started Soul Rental Media, we wanted to have a lot of things available, and I wanted to produce stuff and put out stuff that if I saw it, I'd be like, man, this was fun. This was insightful. I can take this. I can use this. This was actually really readable. I wanted to write stuff that I would that I would want to read, that I was passionate about to write, and that other people would really like. There are a handful of books along the way that I've just grabbed and just loved. I'm like, man, this is great. And I usually end up buying copies to hand out. I was always handing out books and giving books away when I was pastoring, because I'd read a book that I'd like, and then I'd grab 4 or 5 copies for the guys in our church. Oh man, you got to read this. This is good. This is hilarious. You should read this. So I want to write good stuff, and I want to bring people closer to Christ. And right now, by God's grace, writing and publishing has allowed me to do that, and I'm thankful for that. God has been kind in allowing me to do that, and He's blessing it. I think over the last little over a year, so probably 14 months, we have put out, Nahum will be my 8th book. So I've written 8 books plus what we have on the docket that we're working on in that time frame. So I feel blessed that the Lord has given me that level of productivity over that time frame. And generally, when the Lord is doing that, I feel like that's when He's blessing something, that's where you divert your attention. So long story short, that's kind of why I diverted a lot of the attention from the podcast. Why I haven't been podcasting very much, and have been focused on other things. And I've found a tremendous amount of encouragement in writing, and there's just been a lot of other things in the world that have been discouraging, and then in my immediate world within my home that I just wanted to focus on and take care of. And you don't want to podcast just because you want to talk. You want to have something to say. So yeah, that's where we've been. Where we've been at, what I've been doing. There's a whole lot more there. I probably just pulled a bunch of pins on grenades unknowingly and chucked them out there. So I hope that's helpful. I guess moral of the story is, well, just personally, I'm going to try to put out a podcast once a week, maybe every 2 weeks, depending on what's going on in our lives. Again, this is enjoyable. It's fun. I appreciate the feedback from y'all. If you want to leave feedback from this, that would be really helpful. I like that. Please share this stuff. Again, that's really, really helpful for us. But if something comes up in my life, this is a hobby. It's not a profession. I care more about my family than I do about you. So they're going to get my attention. And if the Lord continues to bless my writing, that's where I want my primary focus to be. But we're going to try to do this once a week, maybe once every couple weeks if things come up. There's certainly enough stuff. There's no shortage of things to comment on, certainly from a Christian worldview perspective out there. So we'll be doing that. And then I guess moral of the story, lesson to be had from this is, I would say if God is pressing something upon your heart, pursue it. Don't quiet it. There so many years, and it was random too, but for so many, I guess that needs to be explained, but for so many years I wanted to write and just kind of talked myself out of it. And I had people, this is where I said it's kind of random. This is what I meant behind that statement was I had a few people over the years that I would get together with lunch that I hadn't seen in a long time. And it seemed completely random because they had no idea. We're just catching up. We hadn't seen each other in a long time. And I wasn't even sure, like at first, where they were at in their walk with the Lord. and they would say, Andy, I feel like God's telling me you should write. And I'm like, oh, wow, well, that's really random. And that happened probably a few times over that 12-year period that was, from my perspective, seemed entirely random and just completely out of the blue. And I registered it. I deposited it. It was there in the back of my mind. I didn't let it go, but I didn't pursue it at the time. So I would say if you have things in your life like that, hold on to them, cherish them, pray about them, and then don't be afraid to pull the trigger. Get after it. And if you feel God is calling you to do something, then you do it regardless of how hard it is. And if it's hard, God is good. You'll figure it out. He'll get you through it. So, yeah, if you have podcast ideas, things that you want me to talk about, write about, highlight, whatever, just, you can send me a message. I'm trying to get better at interacting with people on social media. I've tried not to do that. And I've had people tell me, Andy, you should interact with people. It's like, if I interact with people, I try to send private messages through just a private message, right? Because it's generally a little more genuine. You don't know how something's going to come across on a public forum, or who else is going to jump into the conversation and add their 2 cents. And there's always that, Johnny Theology on social media that always wants to get his 2 cents in. You're like, oh, you suck. But so anyway, if you send me a message, I'll try to respond. And if it's just a comment or feedback, I'll take it to heart. I might not act on it, but depending on what it is, but I'll definitely listen. And anyway, I hope this is helpful. That's where I've been at. That's where I've been at. That's what I've been doing. And we got a lot of good books out. If you go onto Amazon, you type in Andy Parker, you should be able to find a lot of our stuff. Some of our stuff, I noticed you have to type in book at the end of the title. Like if you type in Make Patriarchy Great Again, I don't know if the book will show up, but it hadn't shown up for the longest time. You had to like type book at the end of it, and then it would show up, which is funny. But so if you're looking for something specifically, maybe that's the trick. You type book in. But I hope this was helpful, and yeah, God bless. I need to come up with a better ending. I don't know how to end this thing. So I'm just, have a good day.